Mr. Tony Baker. Welcome to your first one-on-one with Comedy Hype, also known as Hype Plus.
Let's get it, man. It's good to be here.
Man, it's good to have you here. I think I like to kind of give my first thoughts about subjects or people when they sit in front of us. And I think there's a genuine happiness coming from you, but also people that have been watching you over the years.
Yeah.
They feel, I think, that you are deserving of whatever success is coming your way and what you have experienced. So kudos to you.
Thanks,
with
man.
that.
Appreciate that.
Let's take it back home, Chicago. What era, if you can share, like what was the energy like of Chicago when you grew up as a kid?
When I grew up as a kid, I was born in 77. So, you know, growing up at that time, memories kick in probably when you, like real memories kick in when you like, right before I go to any type of school, I kind of remember life at that time. We moved a few times in my early childhood around the city, south side.
Okay.
South side of Chicago. Anybody that knows Chicago knows that it's extremely segregated.
Really?
That's just how the city was. Like it's a lot of that in the Midwest, so it's no surprise. But the South Side is predominantly black growing up. So my whole existence was just seeing black faces, black people. That's just what it was. So when I would see white people, it'd be like we took a trip somewhere, even though it was just downtown. Right. But it was like, yo, whites, you know. And so, and growing up in that environment, I was conscious of it, but not really conscious of it then. It was like, man, until you move away and expand, that's when you really, man, it was really black out here. And, you know, all black teachers, might have had a couple white teachers sprinkled in here and there. They were teaching us black history, all of this. And at the same time, crime, gangs, drugs, that was all in the mix. GDs, vice lords. I dare you to go in the alley and yell out vice lords. I ain't doing that. Like, you know, stuff like that. And so we're just in that environment. And, you know, in the 80s, I come up also when crack hit the scene, cocaine was out here. So, you know, seeing, you know, drug paraphernalia close to home, living in an environment where there's, you know, alcohol, drugs, gangs. I'm taking all this in as a kid and I'm just like, man, this is just what life is. Like, you know, this is how it is everywhere in America, as far as I'm concerned.
At what point did you know it wasn't like that? At what point did you notice that your city was divided in terms of race? And your first experience of racism, do you recall that?
Yep. My dad moved to the suburbs. Okay. He moved to South Holland. And at that time, it was white out there. And so South Holland is just further south than the city of Chicago. Okay. So when he moved to South Holland, they were like one of two black families on the block. So it was just like, oh, snap, you done moved. So it felt like a different environment. It wasn't as urban. That's when I got called a nigga for the first time.
Wow.
His next door neighbor, I never told him this, but his next door neighbor, there was a little girl there. And, you know, I was outside playing. She came outside and she was just like, hey, nigga. She just said it casually,
with
like
the
it was
R
friendly.
The E or the R. The A or the ER.
She said nigga.
Okay.
But the way she said it, it wasn't like
friendly.
No malice on it. It was just like, hey nigga. Like she was excited to have a nigga friend. So it was just like, and in that moment I was just like, wait a minute. And then she said it again. I was like, and I don't remember saying hey back or anything. I was just like, wow. You know what I'm saying? I just got called the N-word, but it was friendly. It was warm. And so never told my dad.
Okay.
And what that made me realize is that, her parents say this in the house. They probably in the house saying, we got these niggas next door, you know what I'm saying? So as a kid, she probably not knowing that that's wrong. So it was just, I could just tell by the energy. And that, honestly, that's the only time in my life I've been called a nigga to my face by a white person. That's the only time.
I mean, you see a lot of these conversations going viral right now. And then there's moments where we see a white person, or we'll just say anyone that's non-black, say it in a derogatory way.
Yeah.
And then they get a couple uppercuts to the face.
Right.
Would Tony Baker be able to respond if someone ever hit him with that now?
Now today?
Yeah.
Oh, it'll probably be violent.
Yeah.
Whether it be verbal or physical, you're gonna get a rise out of me now. Like, you know, especially like, it was funny because I was able to really process the intent when she said it, even at a young age. I had to be like, you know, he moved out there when I was young, so I'm maybe second grade, third grade tops, you know, and it just didn't feel threatening in that moment. I was just like, I was confused. Like I was just, you know, it'd have been different if she said it hard, with the hard ER, some, you know, some umph on it. But she gave me that energy like, let's play. You know what I'm saying? Nigga. And I was just like, so I was, you know, I wasn't ready for that. I was just like, I don't know if she meant it or what, you know, what's going on here. So that made me very, like, I looked at my dad's neighborhood with a side eye after that point. I was just like, man, I ain't really rocking with them. Because when I go back home to my mom, because I went to my dad's house every weekend. Okay. So when I go back home to my mom, I'm back in the blackness. Right. And I'm comfortable there. Even though the crime is heavier, I'm still comfortable as far as race.
Why do you think that word, the N-word, has so much weight to it? You know, because I think we sometimes empower things. I'm kind of can be a mentalist at times where it's like, if I don't give something power, then it has no meaning to me. Well, why do you think some of us kind of like, if someone, like you said, you would react in a violent way, that means that's damn near a punch at you. Right.
It's really the intent. Now, someday if you catch me on a right day, I'll just shred you by making you look stupid. Like if you hit me with because I can't really say what I would do face to face. I know what I do online. Like if somebody says it online, I'm gonna make you look stupid. Right. Like, you know, it's big racism. I game. So, you know, I'm playing, you know, Call of Duty, and normally I mute strangers. Like, you know, if you somebody I don't know, normally I mute everybody because I know they be big racists in the gaming world, just be blurting out stuff. So I can make you look stupid in that realm because we're not face to face. Right. You know what I mean? But having not had the experience face to face before, I'm speculating on what I would do. Yeah. Maybe I would get violent. Maybe I would say something violent, or maybe I would just roast the shit out of you. It just make you look like an idiot. Yeah. So there's that. So I'm all like hypothetical at this point. But the power is just, you know, I learned at an early age, like I said, growing up in the south side of Chicago, they taught us Black history out the gate. Yeah. So we're learning about Martin Luther King, Phyllis Wheatley, you know, Malcolm X. We're learning about Marcus Garvey at an early age, and we're learning about the civil rights movement early. So it's just like, you know, we get in the Black experience and we know how it was back in the day, how it was in the South. So it was just like, and my older brothers, I'm the youngest of three boys. So my older brothers would come home and they would tell me, I remember there was a video store in Bridgeport. There was an area in Chicago that was, at that time, pretty like Italian, Irish, whatever. And there was a video store there, and they was like, man, they came home and they was like, man, they chased us out of Bridgeport. They call us niggas. And I was like, oh. So I'm taking in the racism in that moment as well. So I'm just like, oh, okay, that's what's going on out here. While also learning stuff in school. So it was just like, all right. So even though, you know, we don't want to give it the power that we give it, but it just, knowing that you're going to use that chip, that racism chip, knowing what that word does and what it can do, if you're going to play that card, it's just like,
well, obviously it's a big form of disrespect.
Yeah.
Because you already know.
Right.
You got a track record that this energy.
You know what it is.
It kind of opens up a conversation. You being a stand-up comedian. There's been debates before about white comedians using the N-word. Right. Comedy is freedom of speech. Yeah. How do you navigate, and what is your perspective on that?
For me, as a comedian, I'm all about, is it funny? Is it clever? Is it funny? And where is it coming from? What's the intent? I'm big on intent. Like we have debates all the time about, you know, if you ain't Black, you shouldn't be saying the N-word. Yeah. But I'm all about intent. Like if you're reciting rap lyrics, and I know that you're into hip hop and this is what you do, but you happen to be white, and you just say it at a concert or whatever, I'm not gonna flare up.
It's because I would imagine a guy like Kendrick.
Yeah.
He looks into the crowd. You see white kids. They're saying the N-word.
Right.
I just wonder how do you process that?
Yeah. And I saw an interview with Freddie Gibbs, and he was just like, I wouldn't trip on that because I'm all about the intent. Like, you know, they might forget to edit, or they might, if they're home alone reciting the lyrics, it's like, no, you just reciting the lyrics. So it doesn't hit me the same.
Yeah, I think I'm still processing.
Yeah.
Right.
And I get people that won't allow it in any shape or form. I get that. I'm like, all right. But for me, it's like, all right, you really into the culture. You just really into hip hop. So I'm not getting a real racist vibe from you as a person.
I think the gesture, it's such a sensitive conversation because even if one were to censor themselves, it becomes like they're now kind of pandering to you. Yeah. Like your mind can go there. Well, you know, don't be weird if that's what you wanted to say in rap. But also the thing of like, I might appreciate the respect that you don't know how I would respond to that. You don't know how I feel. But it's just interesting. Now, I'm gonna make sure it's a touchy one because it deals with someone else in the game, Chris Rock. He went viral when he had a conversation with Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh, I know the exact clip.
Yeah, man. He and for context for people listening and watching this, I believe Louis C.K. used the N-word, the hard ER.
Yep. And
Chris didn't check the situation.
Not at all.
And he just kind of laughed it off.
Man, having a good time.
And recently, you know, Chris has got his card pulled because it seems like he's pandering to that white audience. But staying in the course of the N-word in that conversation, how did you react to that?
I've seen that video several times, and I've been wanting to post that video several times on my Instagram page because I love Jerry Seinfeld's stance on it. Like, Jerry Seinfeld refused to get in on the humor of it, and I respected him even more because I was already a fan of Jerry Seinfeld anyway. Like, Seinfeld was my favorite TV comedy. So for him to, in that moment, stand his ground while they just having a good ass time, Ricky, Louis, and Chris, and Jerry was just like, no, I don't see the need, nor do I seek, finding a joke about it. And I was just like, all right, Jerry. But I've never posted the video because I knew it would make Chris Rock look bad.
Yeah, that's where I would.
And so that's what prevented me from posting it because I know his brothers. So it's just like, I don't want that to become, but I've always wanted to post that because I love Jerry's mindset on that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he refuses to take it there because he doesn't see anything funny about it. And I feel like as a comedian, that's the lane I come from as a comedian. Like, I'm not trying to push the envelope.
And it seems like the energy of comedy, there's always been a dark comedy, but there's some comedians that are really like dark and like just, I'm going to say the most heinous thing.
Right. They feel like it's not real comedy if they're not pushing the envelope, if they're not offending somebody in the audience. They feel like it's not real comedy to them until they can make somebody upset.
That's
and
interesting.
I don't come from that.
The key thing you said was to them.
Right.
When I thought that as comedians, you're looking to help raise the energy of the people watching you. But to them, I feel good about what I said, but you feel like shit.
Right.
I don't know if that's supposed to be the craft.
For me, it's not. Like, I know there are some comedians that really believe that. Like, they believe that, you're going to have to get in on what I find funny. And for me, my purpose on stage is to be my authentic self, be funny, but also you have to make the audience laugh. That's the end game. That's the goal. If not, just stand up on an empty stage and just talk, do a podcast or whatever. But for me, my goal is to make you leave the venue feeling good, like having laughed, had a good time. It's never my goal to be like, I'm gonna upset this person, man. This person right here, like, you know what I'm saying? I don't like to be mean spirited or trying to push the envelope just to push it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Now there have been some jokes that I have that have offended people, but I'm just like, if you get offended by what I'm saying, you just a tight ass at that point. But for me, that's never my goal. Like, I want you to come out. You done got a babysitter. You done put the money up. You done drove. You done came, and you don't want to come to a show and leave worse than when you came in. For me, like, if you come see me, I want you
to get beat up.
Yeah, so it's like, even when I roast people in the audience, I want them to feel like we're in the joke together. Like, you know what I'm saying? Unless they're being, disrespectful to the show, then I have no problem shredding you up. But like, if you just in the front, I want you to feel like, yeah, I'm gonna interact with you, but I don't want you to feel dumb or stupid. I don't like when comedians do that.
Yeah.
When they be like, ooh, making the audience feel dumb, especially when they did nothing wrong. I just be like, man, come on.
One thing that I, talking about stand-up, and I mentioned this at the top of the conversation, it's a genuine love and a genuine support when it comes to your career. And it seems that we, and even your fellow stand-up comedians, appreciate someone who kind of like just stuck at the craft of it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I haven't personally seen you on stage. I've seen clips.
Yeah.
But I can see you as a comedian's comedian. Is that true to define you as that?
That's what they say. Like, for me, I don't look at it as like, I want to be a comedian's comedian. But for me, it's like, I genuinely love doing it. Like, when I first did my open mic, when I did my first open mic in 2008, I was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing the whole time. I'm supposed to been did this. And so I never quit ever since then. Like, I never took significant time off. I never stepped away. The only time I took a real break was when the pandemic happened.
Right.
So from 2008 all the way to 2020, I've never taken a significant break from comedy.
Have you noticed like your growth in stand-up?
Yeah. Like, the biggest help for me is hosting a show. I hosted Crack 'em Up Thursdays, produced by Michelle Murdoch at the Comedy Store for 3 years. So hosting a show is the biggest tool any comedian can ever have, because now, you can do your material, but now it's teaching you, all right, let me do some crowd work. Let me keep the show moving. I got to keep coming back up. So now I'm learning I could do the material. I can do the crowd work. I know how to reset the room if need be. You're learning so many things hosting a show as opposed to just doing a set. You got to be quicker on your feet. You got to be in the moment more. And I feel like that's been my strongest teaching tool in stand-up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was like, because you never know what you're going to get. And then there are moments where, we done had some wild nights at Crack 'em Up. And I remember this one dude was heckling. He was just heckling throughout the night, just talking too much. And I was just like, hey, man, shut your ass up, man, while the comedians is up here. He's like, nah, you know what I'm saying? I was like, man, you think you can do this, man? Come up here. And I put two cats on stage before. Oh, you think you funny out here? Go on up here and do a set. And so I sat in the front and they was on stage with the little mic and they both bombed. And I was just like, that's what your ass get. Now shut your ass up and sit down. So it was just like, and having those moments where I was comfortable enough to come up here and do your set since you want to be, talking all night.
Right.
And that's showing people that it's not easy.
Yeah,
you think you're funny in the crowd, but this ain't that.
Because especially in this, and this is kind of where I'll segue the conversation. The digital game has opened a lot of doors for people that weren't doing the craft, but they're now considering themselves comedians.
Right.
You have been able to find a great, healthy, sweet spot of balance where you can give us some heat on stage, but you can also put some fire on our phones. And I think that's what the new comedian will probably ultimately have to become, where they have to be able to do both.
Yeah.
But it makes me think about this, right? One thing from the outside looking in is that Tony has all these things. Where's the TV show? Right. Why no TV show? What is happening? I'm sure you've gotten those questions. Right. But from your perspective, like, what do you think is happening? Because to me, I'm looking at this guy that has everything. From the outside looking, he has everything. But what's going on with the industry that they're not? Hey, you get your TV show. You just had and I'll double down. You had a moment on Lil Rel's show. Yeah. And you put a clip in. people love that. What was it? 5 seconds.
Yeah. It was Carmichael show, the Carmichael
Excuse
show.
me,
Yeah.
Carmichael show.
And you know what it is? It's like I tell people, they be like, where's your Netflix special? Where's your TV show? That's on them. Because one thing I do know about Hollywood, they play it safe. And they're not as willing to take chances, and they're not as creative as we think they are. Mm-hmm. So what it is, you know, back in the day, they were giving cats real chances out here. Red Fox, the Jeffersons, like they were taking real chances and real risks. And people didn't have to look a certain way. They didn't have to, it was just whatever they were feeling, they would put it out there and see what happens. And I feel like they lost that later in the game. We're looking for the next, or they always looking for the next, whoever's hot at the time. Rather than just finding a gem and
That's
just
crazy.
put them
It's
up
just
there.
crazy to me, man. And I hope whoever has some type of influence in getting you those TV shows is hearing that. But I think it's just kind of out of pocket, because you have time and time again, at least from what I'm seeing, have proven yourself that you have an audience, you have a demand.
Right.
How many followers do you have now on Instagram?
It's like 2.5.
2.5, and no pushes is independently done.
Yeah.
Consistently puts out content, consistently shows that people love your work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's questionable, even as a businessman. I'm like, okay, why are you not putting your money behind this guy? So I'm just my own perplexed of like, it doesn't make sense to me.
It's really on them, because people, I've been pitching the TV show here recently, and it's just like I don't think they fully get it. Like they say they get it, but they don't fully get, what it is. Yeah, they know about the voiceovers, but they don't know about.
Have there been attempts to try to produce stuff around the voiceovers? I feel like
people come in and then they fade out, or they try to overthink it and overproduce it, and then they fade out. So it's just like, and what I keep telling them is, you don't have to put all this extra stuff into it. You don't have to overproduce it. You don't have to put in all this remixes. People enjoy the simplicity of these voiceovers. Yeah. Like, you don't have to overproduce. Less is more. I'm a firm believer in less is more. Yeah. Like, I feel like, you don't have to put all this money into it. It could be super simple. People just get on their phone at night and look at the videos. I do these videos on my phone. I'm not in here on the computer editing and bringing in special effects. I'm on the phone. I look at the video. I see what's going on in the video, and then I do commentary, or I just do the voiceover, and that's it. Yeah. And people love it. They watch it before they go to bed. So it's just like, you don't have to overthink the creative process here. Yeah. All we need is video, and I'm gonna come up with the stuff on the fly. Yeah.
So how does that relationship look now with Hollywood? It doesn't seem like you're waiting on it, or you kind of, because you built this audience, I'm sure that you're being able to monetize the moves that you're making now. Mm-hmm. Because I think people are kind of like not so pressed about it as it used to be in the past.
Yeah, because I'm not pressed at all, because my revenue comes from my stand-up. Mm-hmm. Like, 90% of my income is stand-up based, or it's, me working with KevOnStage, or it's me doing a podcast or my YouTube content. I don't get paid for voiceovers. Gotcha. So my revenue comes in, because it's all like, I'm still pretty much underground. Like, the stuff I do is just underground. Yeah. What I'm doing is, it's great, but this is what I really do. And so, because those videos, I don't know who owns the videos, so I'm not trying to get paid off those videos, because, then I'll be in the hot tub on that. So
it makes me think, I wonder what, the business person in me is like, what do we have to do? Right. Do we have to license these things? And then,
and that's the thing that can be done, license the videos, and then I can put something on it. And it's something we've been working on. Okay. It's something we were actually doing at KevOnStage Studios before my son passed. Gotcha. And so when that happened, I was just like, I'm taking everything off my plate except for stand up. Gotcha. And so, so as far as my revenue now is these stand-up tours, my stand-up on audio platforms, these different streams of income are pretty much stand-up based. Gotcha. And I'm my own marketing team. So it's just it's all in-house.
And you're content?
Yeah, like, I'm not pressed. Let me put it that way. I'm not pressed for Hollywood to notice me now or Netflix or whoever because I'm able to make a living still doing the stand-up, still throwing out the content, but I'm comfortable to where it's like, all right, I'm not at the mercy of any deal that comes my way or anything that comes my way. I can be like, no, I'm good if I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
And, because the end game for me is, I would like a sitcom only to put people at the comedy shows. I would love a sitcom. Let's say it lasts 5, 6 seasons. We get 100 episodes. We get syndicated. And then I can fill up comedy clubs for years on the strength of that. That's like a dream of mine. It's just like, I can just post one flyer and sell out the club. And I'm just like, this is good right here.
Cause that comes down to like being, I think, just a great artist. I think great artists don't have to oversell it.
Right.
Just like, I got the crack right here.
Yeah.
It's like, what made me think about, your independent hustle, because you honestly can probably produce your own special and put it out yourself. Mm-hmm. You do have an audience for that.
Right.
I think about what the moves KevOnStage is doing. Mm-hmm. How impactful has that relationship been for your career?
Oh, absolutely, man. I say this all the time. It's like, Kev is responsible for putting the most money in my pocket from a single individual.
Is that at a one time, or just in terms of just as a
whole
relationship?
As a relationship, like he has put more money in my pocket than anybody ever has. Because even before me and him started working together, it was just like I've been on Last Comic Standing for 2 seasons, this, that, and the third, but that still didn't equate to butts in the seats or me getting door deals or whatever. That came from, just the grind, the constant grind. Like, when I first started working with Kev, he was at All Deaf, so he would just bring me in to do 2-minute drill.
You remember the first time y'all met?
We met at Nate Jackson's show in Tacoma.
Okay.
And, Kev was from up that way. So I was up there and I saw him perform and I was like, yeah, man, I like this guy, man. He's funny. Like, we had similar viewpoints in life. He had 2 boys. He was married. I was like, man, I like this guy right here. So,
gotcha. So All Deaf is where
but All Deaf, when he came down to All Deaf to LA to work at All Deaf, he would bring me in for stuff because he was a fan. So he was just like, yo, man, can you come in and do? I did Spoken Reasons had like a series on there. So
Dr. Reasons.
He did, So he did that show based on my joke about being scared of clowns. Mm-hmm. That was the premise of that episode. So I came in and did that. And then he would just bring me in, and then he brought me in to do 2-minute drill while I'm just talking about sports. And so he was bringing me in for that. And I was just like, and at this time, I need every penny I can get. Okay. Like I needed every cent. And I'm just like, man, thank you. So he's bringing me in, All Def's putting money in my pocket between that and doing shows at the Laugh Factory in Long Beach. The Laugh Factory and KevOnStage was keeping me afloat financially without having to go get a regular, job. So me and him just started working together more and more, and then we did the tour together, and then, he brought me into the Spectrum fold when they wanted him. He's like, well, you can bring Tony in, and then he brought me in, and then he brought Tahir in, so it was like that. And so all of these things just blossom into this great, friendship, working relationship and I always tell people, man, like him, he's responsible. And other than that, it's just the people.
Yeah.
Because, Hollywood is not checking for me like that. And so I love the independent hustle because I feel like there's more power in when they come to you finally. Whenever they get it, whenever it clicks for them.
Right.
And then they can come to me and I'm not hat in hand. Please. It's like what they did with Bernie Mac. Not saying I'm on Bernie Mac's level.
I know what you mean.
But it took a while for Hollywood to get Bernie Mac. It was just like, and then when the Kings of Comedy came out, he was undeniable. So they was just like, man, we just got to, because they wasn't going to take a chance on him before that.
Yeah. I think that and just to kind of like give KevOnStage his credit, is a certain mentality I think that artists have to have now, which is empowering yourself. And I can only assume, I haven't had a one-on-one with Kev in this fashion, but I can assume that he has the right mentality, which is I'm not going to wait for the game to put me on. I'm going to create my game and I'm going to do my thing.
Right.
It kind of, let's see, being a stand-up, it made me think about like, do you remember how much of a struggle it was coming up and doing these gigs before this energy of wealth and success has came?
Absolutely, man. Like me and my boys talk about it all the time. My boys being like Brandon Lewis, who hosts Roast Me, DC Irvin, Keenan Baker, Keon Poley, Chaz Rogers. We reminisce about the struggles all the time, especially me and Brandon.
How bad
Lewis.
did it get?
It was like, I remember my first paid gig as a stand-up comedian. I went with a comedian named Tashawn Barrett, Clayton Thomas, Ocean Glapion. We did a road trip. So drove my car, so I had a car. We drove 10 hours to Deming, New Mexico for a comedy show at a winery. This is my first paid gig.
Okay.
I think I made $200.
And there's a whole trip.
Like,
yeah.
I'm out here. You know what I'm saying? That $200. I was like, man, $200 for this?
Yeah.
And so, you know, gigs like that where we're driving hours and mad mileage and just gas money, and we're getting paid $60, $45, $15, $200. And it's just like, man. And you know, when I first started, I was hitting open mics like crazy. Open mic after open mic. I would go here to this open mic, call somebody, yo, sign me up at that open mic. So I'm hitting like 4 or 5 stages a night. And I was doing this for years, just trying to, you know, get all the stage time I can, learn the craft, get used to different audiences. That's why I like starting in LA, because I'm getting different demographics in the same city. Like I started at the Ha Ha in North Hollywood, which is like Armenian, Latino, white, predominantly on the audience side. And then I can go down to Inglewood to the J Spot, do a black crowd that might be slightly hood or whatever. Then I'm doing the Family Room, which is dead in the hood. And then I'm going back up and doing a show that might be all Latino, or a show that might be just regular white, Hollywood white. So it's just like I'm getting all these different types of demographics and, you know, finding my voice through that as opposed to just getting stuck with one crowd. So then as I progressed, you know, when I did the San Francisco International Comedy Festival, I did this, and it was intense. Up top in the Bay Area, we was all over the place. So we're doing shows at old folks' homes and like this, that, and the third. And I never had to flinch on my material because I just came up in a diverse, you know, crowd. And so I was able to, you know, pivot and be like, not have to sweat it, not have to alter my set. Oh, it's old white people, I got to change who I am. Like, no. And so that benefited me. And, you know, but my mind was always like, I want the black audience though.
Right.
I want that black audience.
I think that's important that you're aware of that.
Yeah.
Because I do feel that making us laugh, it's a different type of, you know, muscle you hitting with your joke.
Yeah.
It comes from a different place. And it made me curious about like, have you ever gone back to Chicago to kind of like work that muscle?
Yeah.
Because I'll say this through observation. I got a lot of respect for everybody in the game.
Yeah.
I just don't know if you get the same type of challenge in LA.
Right.
Like you would get in Atlanta or Chicago.
Definitely different.
So how do you know, we talk Karate Kid.
Yeah.
You know, how do you go up and train if you're not with like people that's going to give you a really tough time?
Right. I remember, cause like I said, I started comedy here. So by the time I finally got to Chicago to do a show, I was at at Riddle's Comedy Club in Alsip. And, I was just like, I was nervous because I was going back home for the first time to do stand up. I was like, man, I hope. And the energy was fantastic, you know, and so it was just like, and they knew I was from there. It was like, you know, I got emotional in that mug, but it was like, it's different because now, you know, and I've always tried to stick to material that wasn't LA based. Like I always tried to come from a real place where I can relate to somebody in Chicago, Atlanta, Pittsburgh, wherever I'm at. You can feel where I'm coming from and not get caught in Hollywood material, LA material, whatever, and just be comfortable in that pocket. And I think a lot of things too that helped me was, like I said, hosting those shows, So I'm hosting shows, I'm in hood rooms, I'm in Hollywood rooms, and I'm just like, all right, I'm comfortable in every environment. Because I remember doing shows, I did a show in Bakersfield that was super hood, and the host cussed out the crowd. He cussed their asses out. He was like, I'm tired of y'all in here always talking, man. I be bringing these comedians in, y'all just be disrespectful out here talking. All right, man, bring him to the stage. He did no reset.
Right.
He brought me up after he cussed him out, no jokes. He was dead serious. Tony Baker. And I was like, bruh, I got to. So I went up there. Thankfully, I had a cordless mic.
Okay.
So all the thugs was in the back, talking, smoking. They back there just chopping it up. I went back there to them. And I was just like, man, what the fuck y'all talking about over here, man? Y'all back here 40s and blunts, man, 40s and blunts. And I was just like, I had to roast them because they would not shut up.
Right.
But I put my livelihood at risk by walking into the mix and then going back. But I had to do that because he didn't set me up properly. And so shows like that give me the confidence to go in any room and be able to deliver. But I will say this though, I can take an L on any given night. Right. And that's always in the back of my mind. I could lose tonight. I could take an L, the set might not work. So every show that I do, I'll be like, yo, I could lose tonight. And I've had those shows, I'm like, oh man, I'm about to kill him. And then I go up there, it'd be mediocre, or it'd be an L Ron Hubbard. So I always have in my mind, and it keeps me grounded and it keeps me humble in terms of, I've seen star comedians take an L. Anybody can get it.
Right.
And so I always had that mindset going up. But I also too have to have the confidence to be able to go up and deliver and see what happens.
Chicago built, Chicago made in terms of the essence and the cloth that you come from.
Yeah.
Another person from Chicago is Kanye West.
Right.
South Side as well.
Yep. Close.
What do you take of Kanye's latest, or just as like, how do we process this guy?
Well, I didn't even watch the Drink Champs. Like I'm at the point now where I'm kind of numb to Kanye. So it's like whatever he says now, I'm just like, I feel like an abused lover in a sense to where they just tell you stuff and you just be like, all right, And so with Kanye, I don't even know what he said on Drink Champs, but apparently he was just going in, and I was just like, I'm not even interested in even tuning in.
Yeah.
So it's just because it's always something with Kanye. It's always something. And when he first came out, he was a breath of fresh air. Like when he first hit the scene, seeing him in real time, climb, it was just like, yo, I like this dude, man. He a regular dude. He got on regular shirt. He got a backpack on, you know what I'm saying? Because at this time, 50 Cent is reigning supreme. Right. So it's just like, you got to have a bulletproof vest. You got to get shot. You got to have some guns on you to really make it. And so to see Kanye put out the good hip hop with the good soul samples and then sell, and then, College Dropout, he's putting Common back in the game. He got Talib Kweli on there, and it's just like, yo, this dude is what we've been waiting on. Mad excited. And then, as we progress and, Kanye's full of himself, it's like, all right, he's a little full of himself, but what I'm saying? But the music is good.
He started noticing this.
Yeah, just noticing these patterns, but his mom was there to reel him back in. So it's like, all right, tell him, Miss West, you know what I'm saying? And then I remember the moment where he said, George Bush don't care about black people. Like, man, he don't. He don't. See, that's why I rock with Kanye, man. That's why I've been telling you, man. You know what I'm saying? So we was with him. And then, when he lost his mom, we was just like, oh, damn, man, I knew they was close. And then we was still with Kanye. Because Graduation came out, he went against 50 Cent. We was like, man, Kanye beat 50 Cent, man. Let's go. But then, it was just more of him feeling himself, and then the Taylor Swift situation. And then it was just like, even though he had a point, Beyonce was getting overlooked, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. But you don't do that. You don't disrespect.
There's a time and a place.
There's a time and you can say that off the cuff or, later on, but come on, man, you don't interrupt this girl's moment like that.
Yeah.
And it's not Taylor Swift's fault. You know what I'm saying? So after that, it was just like, you see the people and it's just like, that really hurt his trajectory in terms of his sales. Because Kanye was moving like, Graduation sold 900,000 first week.
Come on.
Late registration was 800,000 first week. He was moving real units. My Dark Twisted Fantasy comes out 400-some thousand first week. So it's just like, you saw the drop off.
Yeah.
People got turned off. And even though he was still putting out great music, you know, as a piece, I feel like he could have been even larger because he would have had the full audience on his side. Yeah. But he alienated so many people, just like, all right. So then he becomes more erratic, more angry, and just all this is building up. So it's just like, man, come on, man.
Makes sense. You kind of put a note in there about the relationship with his mother and him. And are you one that does think that she was probably a grounded force?
Absolutely.
And that was maybe the moment
absolutely
where things kind of just ran off the wheel?
100%. Like you double down on that feeling when you watch the documentary. Like I watched the documentary and seeing those moments between Donda and Kanye, you can tell she was a massive force in his life. Like all the stuff he was going through, trying to get noticed, trying to get his own deal through Rockefeller, and he would go talk to her. You could see, you know, the closeness that they shared. And like, you know, when you don't have that, and this is a woman he's going to respect because she was always there for him. So losing her suddenly, it wasn't even a slow process. It was a sudden death.
Right.
And I feel like he never really sat down and dealt with it. It was just like, it's just going.
I wonder if he forgave himself, because the interesting thing about success, how I process it, that we are building and working so hard towards some things, but success can bite you back in its process. Does that make sense? Kind of what I'm saying? Like, I wonder if he thought maybe if he never was able to afford a surgery,
right,
you know, would that have happened? Those thoughts kind of, I think, would enter one's mind.
Yeah, the regret. He might have some of that. Like, you know, I'm not sure how deep he dug into grieving her loss.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, when you lose somebody that close, and I know this from, you know, personal experience, like when you lose somebody extremely close, you have all these doubts and you kind of start looking for regret. You kind of start like, man, maybe, you know, maybe if I would have done this, I was doing that. Like when I lost my son, I was like, well, man, maybe if we took that trip to Chicago, we probably wouldn't even been out here at the time.
You start trying to figure out the holes.
Yeah, it's like maybe if I would have moved when I was supposed to move, he wouldn't even have been in that area at that time. So you start looking for that. But I checked myself immediately. I was like, you know what? That's not what it's about, and that's not on me. You know what I'm saying? And then I would just focus on, you know, knowing that we were good as a father and son. We had a great relationship. So I was just like, man, that's everything. And so, you know, holding on. I can't imagine if me and my son were estranged or we had any type of underlying issues or any type of beef we had unresolved, I'd have been a wreck. But knowing that we were good, like big good, there was no issue, that helped me move forward, you know, more than anything. It's just like, man, we was good. He left this plane knowing that he was loved and that we were good. So I was able to be like, all right, you know, I can push through.
And that's something, and you know, you brought up that, what you had the kind of experience, and you were open enough to share that with your audience. What was the conversation with yourself to say, I want to be transparent in my process of healing?
For me, it was, I never really put any thought into it. It was just, I had to express what was going on. So, you know, I'm very transparent anyway. And so when he did pass, I was just like, all right. In real time, in real life, I was still like cracking jokes. Surprisingly, I was still like cracking jokes, forming complete sentences, talking, eating. And I was just like, I don't know how I'm doing any of this, but, you know, I still felt the need to be funny. And if I had a funny thought, I would put it up there, share it. And not trying to, you know, be the guy that like, this is how you push through. It was just a genuine like, okay. Cause I used to look at parents that lost their children, whether it be through violence, whether the cops killed them, whether it was gun violence or whatever, and they would be on the news the day of or the next day talking about their children. I'm like, if that happened to me, I don't know how I'll be able to form a complete sentence. Like, I don't know how they're even talking right now.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, I get put in that situation, and I was surprised myself because I was hysterical when I first got the call.
Understood.
And then it was just like, well, all right, I noticed myself still functioning, still, talking, breathing, laughing. And I was just like, man, why am I like this? And so I started, expressing that social media wise. I'm just like, man, this, that, and the third. And when people say sorry for your loss, I'm just like, no, it's loss. Just being nitpicky when people are coming with the condolences, but it's loss.
Yeah.
And I was like, why am I like this? So that humor was really helpful to me. And that's why I never really stopped, stand up, because it's something that I love to do. And the energy I get back from people laughing energizes me. Because I lost my son August 3rd. I was in Atlanta for my first show since then, August 25th. Or something like that. I was nervous as hell, scared shitless, but I was still able to. And the scary part is the audience was mourning with me in real time. So they knew everything. So
because you've been transparent about your sons before. Yeah. And I've seen him in videos.
Yeah.
And so you do get a sense of feeling of who this person is. So
right.
Yeah, I can understand why they felt that way. We were able to kind of see him grow.
Yeah.
From the window that you chose to show us.
Right. Because they were always on my page. The Baker Boys were always there. So it was just like, I learned a lot through his death, and, it was something. And I think another thing that helped me push through is that, I have 2 sons. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I can't, shutting down is not an option when you have multiple children. Like, when you shut down, your other son, I can't leave Sincere out here with a shut down parent. So it's just like, what I've learned is you just have to learn how to live with the loss and just to be able to still function.
Yeah. When you have a big loss like that, and when something happens traumatic in your life, you really have these deep, deep thoughts.
Right.
And I think one thing we as people are always trying to find the meanings of life.
Yeah.
What was the one thing with your son passing that you felt you were able to get out of that moment, or a gift or a piece of wisdom that you're open to share to the audience that has, that's listening to this?
For me, what I learned through his passing is, it's cliche at this point, but it's like, man, take in the moments. Every moment matters. Life is short. Yeah. You gotta do what you want to do while you're still living to do it. All of that is, of course, on the table now. And, there's been moments where I've been like, you know what, God, why you do this? Like, questions, going to customer service with God and be like, yo, man, can we,
question his existence?
I think about death all the time.
Gotcha.
Because now it's like, where is my son? Like, what's he experiencing? Like, what was it like? Cause he beat me to it. So now it's just like, dang, man. But now I fear death less because I want to go where he's at. Not that I want to go, not that I want to leave the planet. I don't. But now it's like, all right, maybe I can reconnect, give him some companionship, you know what I'm saying? So I want to know, and I want to know what he experienced. Like when he went out, like what was that like? Because I wasn't there to, And so with that, I was just like, man. So I didn't really feel like I learned anything, but what I learned through the loss is that, I learned how to be a better friend or family member when somebody else loses somebody.
Yeah.
Through our experiences with the loss.
What's something not to do with someone that lost
exactly.
somebody?
I know how to not disappear on somebody. I know how to be there for people when they lose somebody that close. Watching people, how they responded to us, I was just like, oh, okay, this is how it's done. Okay, oh, okay. This is how you stay in the mix. And you know what I'm saying? My boy D would just text me, I love you every single day. Or like people find ways to show up. And some people disappear on you. Like, my dad and oldest brother disappeared. Like they faded out.
Any reason why?
They were just like, we were just trying to give you space. I'm like, I don't need the space.
Right.
I told them, I was like, I don't need y'all to give me space. I just need y'all to, but they was like, yeah, we hear that, but we gonna give you space. I'm like, bro, And so, but I've learned from my mom, who just came down and was just there. She wasn't trying to hit me with no gems or tell me about the meaning of life and what God's plan. Like, she was just around. And I was just like, and that, a lot of people, what people do is they overthink death. Mm-hmm. Oh, you just lost somebody. I got to hit you with something deep. I got to give you the answer to why he passed. I got to do this. You don't have to do that when somebody's grieving. You just need to be around and say, I'm here. Whatever, if you want to talk about anything, I'm here. You don't have to always come with gems and I think a lot of people overthink that. Like, I ain't got no gems, so they disappear.
Yeah.
And so, my other brother he showed up big time. It brought us closer together. So it's just like, so now I know how to be there for people when they experience a loss.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's made me a better person through the loss. It's just like, all right, I know what not to do now.
Yeah.
Like, Kev just lost his brother. And so I've been on their necks ever since it happened. Old Tony, I might have disappeared because I'd be like, I didn't know what to do. But now I'm like, yo, y'all good? Y'all good? I'm texting, I'm harassing. I'm just, saying, what you need from me? Not scared to have those conversations, let people ventilate. And so with the loss of Serene, I've learned how to, be a better friend and, family member to those that have lost anybody.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that moment.
Yeah.
Interesting. In LA, there's been a lot of loss.
Yeah,
the comedy scene.
For sure.
I'll just name two that come to mind: David A. Arnold.
Yep.
And Teddy Ray.
Yep.
And then you have Jack Knight.
Yep.
And of course,
Fuquan. I've been to 6 funerals/memorials in the past year.
What's happening out here?
Man, I don't know. And when we lost Teddy, I was already worried about Teddy because of his weight.
Right.
And so, I seen him on the podcast, and I was just like, man, I'm concerned.
Is that the Lewis Belt podcast?
Yeah.
And he looked a lot larger.
Yeah, because I hadn't seen him in a while. And then I saw him, and I was just like, man, I'm concerned. And so I reached out to Teddy, and I was just like, yo, man, I love you, and, this, that, and third, but I'm really worried about,
oh, wow,
your side. You
felt compelled to just have that.
I did, man, because I didn't want, I didn't want to lose him. And so I reached out, and, he's like, man, I love you too, man, this, that, and the third. And I was telling him, I was like, he had just lost his dad, so he was dealing with that. And so I was like, I know how it is, because, when Serene passed, I went into my cave, and I was just eating and just, not wanting to come out. I would come out and do stand up and go back in the cave, and I'm just eating. I'm just like, so I know how it is. So I was just like, and then he was like, yo, let's start walking together, as exercise. I was like, man, let's do it. And so I felt bad because we never got a chance to do that. And I was just like, damn, man. And I still don't know the exact cause of his death.
Right, and that's still being, I think, understood.
But it was just like, I feared losing him. And then it was just like, man, come on, man. And then David Arnold was such a shock, because David Arnold he was on a hot streak. He had the Netflix specials going. He was producing and writing TV shows. He was in the gym. He had great content with his family. It was just like, yo, David Arnold is about to be out of here in terms of, explosion of just, and he was excited, we would text each other, like, let's go on a tour together. And I was like, I got to do one with Kev first, then you know what I'm saying? So it was just like, and then, you hear about his passing, and it was just like, heart attack. And we also lost Nick. Nick was right after Serene, Nick Carthen.
Okay, right.
And so he was right after Serene. Young dude, fit, something with his heart. We were just like, man, come on. And Nick used to stay with me.
Wow.
And so it was just like, back to back to back to back. I lost an uncle recently, 2 uncles recently. So it was just like, man, what's happening out here? It was like God was like, because I went through life pretty blessed in terms of not really having real losses like that.
Right.
Outside of the old family members.
Yeah.
But now it was just like, the universe was like, all right, Tone, time to sock you out real quick. And it was just back to back. I was like, bro, give me a break. And so I don't know what's happening, man. But it's just like, man, can we get a moment to get our feet together?
And I, you know, I'm sure conspiracists they always try to jump on when things happen in sequences, but the fact that everyone seemed to have gone in different fashions, per se, I mean, Jack, the way he took his life is what is being reported. And then of course, not knowing what happened with Teddy, we can speculate that maybe his health was a part of that.
Right.
And then, you know, other deals with health too, which is David. It's just, yeah, I was just being in Atlanta looking at this. It's kind of like you kind of just feel for at least the LA community, be like, there's a lot of losses happening.
Man, back to back, it was they just keep coming. I'm just like, bro, can we just, who do we have to talk to in the universe to get this to give us a minute, man?
Yeah, and to note, I think what David was experiencing is somewhat of a career-wise parallel maybe to where your own path has been, because I think people really feel like you're old. That's what the energy was for David, because he's been putting in work, and now he was finally getting his looks that he was supposed to get. And I think that we all kind of feel this in real time. For you not to put that energy on you, but the energy of like, it's time to cash in. Someone needs to cash you in, you know?
Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of close this out. One thing you've been able to do, as I mentioned before, is being able to navigate with the digital space and stand up.
Yeah.
I remember watching versus battles. Just watching the versus battles, so-and-so versus so-and-so. And if not 10 minutes or before that stream came on, I see that verified checkmark Tony Baker.
Yeah.
Man, like what was that like marketing strategy, just to be there, be present, or you were just, I was ready, or as a fan, you were ready for it?
I was pure fan, organic energy. Like, you know, I'm a music head. And so these verses are artists that I grew up on. So, you know, ever since they did the first one with Swiss and Timbaland, I was like, oh snap, you know, and so they bringing in RZA and DJ Premier. I'm like, yo, they're my favorite producers. So I'm coming in as a super fan. So I'm definitely in there talking, and I can't not be silly. And so, because nothing can stop the silly, man. I've learned that about myself. I can't stop being silly, but and so with the verses, I'm tapped in every verses, and I'm just in there, and then, you know, it just turned into this thing where it's just like, man, where Tony at? And then, because I'm giving, like, if I'm showing up for, and one of the annoying things about the verses that people get on my nerves with, it's not a battle, man. We both win. No, it's verses. That means battle. We judging it. We seeing who winning.
Well, that might be the way to kind of bring in the talent, to not make them feel. Because I think what I learned with artists is there's a sensitivity, there's an ego there.
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
You ain't trying to look bad,
right?
Because I will be on record to say we tried to kick off a comedy versus, and Cass was not jumping on us proposing this because nobody wanted to kind of risk that look.
It's a little different with comedy, because you know, music is more universal than comedy in terms of, like, you know, you can't compare a joke from Damon Wayans to a Jodeci song. Because a lot of times, you know what I'm saying, there are like jokes out there, but you know, music
replay value.
Music lives with you more than comedy does. Yeah. Like, you can think about, man, that was funny, but you playing songs through memories. Like, you know, you know, if you with the love of your life getting it in to Jodeci, or, you know, say, I remember this song was playing at my graduation, or I remember I got married.
You telling me nobody's playing the Damon Wayans bit while they getting it on?
Yeah, nobody, you know what I'm saying? Nobody's like, man, my wedding, that Chris Rock joke was playing in the background. So music holds a different weight than comedy. And so, you know, the verses would have just been a little bit, you know, strange as far as a comedic verses.
I think there's we who knows if we'll still push forward or not. I think there's a way to do it.
Yeah.
There's a way to do it. So I put that as a no. I'm not going to
Don't give up on your dream, man. I'm going to be in the comments.
Shoot, we hopefully have you on it, man.
No, I ain't doing no verses, man. That's a lot of pressure, man. That's a lot of pressure.
So but it does make me honestly ask this question about versus itself. You know, it was such a successful platform.
Right.
And then you look up and they are selling it to Triller.
Yeah.
And it's like, did you agree with that move? Or you think it was a bad decision? Because ultimately they were jumping on Instagram talking about we're not being treated fair, we're owed money.
Yeah.
And being someone that has understood the importance of independence.
Right.
How did you process that as a fan when they said we're gonna go to Triller?
I feel like once it goes back to people want to throw in too much into the pot. Mm-hmm. Like once you go from organic to, now it's becoming overproduced. Now it's becoming, all we needed as an audience, all we needed were the two artists in the same room. That's all we really needed. Like, when Versus first started, we in the pandemic, they got two different internet connections. We remember the Teddy Riley, that's why Teddy Riley cussed me out, because I was talking about his internet connection. But it was like, you got two, all we wanted was the same room. And then it's like, that's all we needed. But now, we got these other, avenues in here. Now we make it into a big concert. And then when they did the Cypress Hill Onyx joint, where they was only on one thing that you had to pay for, nobody really tuned in like that, because you're taking away the organic flow of what was already hot. And so I just feel like sometimes when you bring in too many cooks in the kitchen or you start overproducing stuff, it loses that initial magic.
Is that where you think it ultimately fell off?
Cause it was like, all right, it got confusing to people. It was like, all right, do we watch it here? Do we watch it over there? It's like, where are we watching it at? Well, you got to have a membership. It was like, there's a lot of confusion and a lot of questions, and the promo wasn't the same. So it was just like, did you know this Versus was happening? I'm like, I didn't even know. And so it kind of just, made everything fall down the steps.
Yeah. It makes me think a lot about, us as Black creatives. Mm-hmm. Just like, why do we always feel we gotta get somebody else in our mix?
Yeah.
To just like, to do our thing.
Right.
Like, I look at that as an entrepreneur and just feel like, what was the purpose? How much do you need? Was it greed overtaken? Because you had the pulse of the culture in your hands.
Right.
We would tune in. When's the last time we all collectively tuned in somewhere?
Tune in. Big
talk
numbers.
About it.
Right.
And I remember like talking to like a girl I was dating or a friend, like, yo, I gotta get to the house.
Right.
And I remember like setting up the projector.
Yeah.
And like really, it was a thing.
It was an event.
I remember people had going to a picnic and people had it on a big projector screen.
Yeah.
And so I just asked those guys like, why?
Right.
Why were you not satisfied with that?
Yeah.
Why do we have that mentality of we need to include someone else? Mm-hmm. I'm going to assume that Triller is a white-owned company. I'm going to assume I'll put the race on the table when it comes to that. But it's just disheartening to see that oftentimes we do that.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I feel like it just equates to, us coming up in the game and feeling like, we need that white money. They always say, you're getting that white money now. You always hear that. And for me, and I want to give a shout out to the people that, rock with me, because they have literally changed my life, just taking it straight to the people. I post about that all the time. It's like, I don't need a Netflix special, because people are like, where's your Netflix special? I'm like, I don't even want one, because I already have a comedy album out. I got 2 visual specials out already, so y'all can just go buy those. And, I don't have a set that I want to put out as a special right now. Mm-hmm. And I got the Real Comedians set that I did. And so when I tell people, it's like, I don't really need Netflix. I don't. It'd be great to, have a special on there, but because of the people that really rock with me and like support me and have put the money up, and, people, pitched in a major way when Serene passed, and they kicked in on any type of funeral expenses. And like, people were able to, send money and love, and like, that was able to support us and bringing family in, getting Airbnbs for the family, getting the food together. The people paid for that for us. So it's just like, now that I have a direct pipeline to the people, it's like, I don't need Hollywood or Netflix. That'd be nice, but I don't need y'all, in the sense of, and with that comes, once they do come in and start to want to overdo stuff and overproduce it and add in too many elements, I can be like, nah, y'all doing too much.
Right.
You're ruining what's already hot. It's like No Limit Records. No Limit Records came in super black. It was just hood, rap, we coming in. Priority Records is probably owned by some white cats, but it was super independent, and people were able to see like, yo, Master P really getting independent money. So it put a respect on independency that, you know, we hadn't seen on that level before. Like out in the open, like, you know, openly talking about it. And it was just like, you know. So I think us as fans, we got a respect for the independent life. But there's still people with stars in their eyes about the big names and the big white money coming in to where we feel like it's official. But I'm like, we don't even have to see it that way anymore, because you know what an independent vibe can do and bring. Mm-hmm. And then I'm telling you, once those other people start coming in, you lose some of the magic, because now they have a say and they don't really connect with the organic vibe of what started this in the beginning.
Yeah. And it just kind of makes me want to wrap things up with, what do you, or how can we further push what Tony has going on? And what does Tony want to have happen for himself? What do you see for you? For me, I would love to do a lot of voice work, like a lot of voiceover work. Like legit, like Star Wars trailer type stuff. Mm-hmm. Let's speak
like
that.
In a Pixar movie, you just hear my voice. A part of me would love to hide in terms of, you don't even know what I look like. You just know my voice. And part of me loves that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I always said, Ghostface Killer should have never revealed himself. Even her, she should have stayed a silhouette for as long as she could. I think that's so dope to have, like, we don't even know what they look like. I don't know what Daft Punk looks like to this day. So I would love to do a lot of voice work. I want to be able to sell out a venue fast, like Dave Chappelle.
Like put it on the thing within 48 hours.
Post it once, sold out, just that quick. Cause I'm tired of promoting, man. I'm tired of myself. Like, yo, man, come check me out. Like, you know, I'm not sure when this will post, but like, you know, I got shows coming up in Houston, Cleveland, Virginia Beach, Buffalo, Phoenix, Tampa, and I know I'm gonna have to promote my ass off to get, you know, people be showing up, but they be showing up last minute.
What do you think that takes from you, though? Huh? What does that take from you to get that Chappelle energy? Is it more promotion, or is Tony gotta come with some stronger material?
I don't know what it is. Like, honestly, like, you know, because I don't compare myself to...
I don't think we see your stand-up enough on your gram.
I post, and you know what it is? Because I post clips from the Real Comedians tour, or like, you know, different sets that I do with flappers and stuff like that. But honestly, I don't want y'all to see too much, but I think unless it's me doing crowd work.
But I think that's the, you know, who I admire, in terms of the hustle, what they did as a stand-up, was Andrew Schultz.
Oh yeah. And
I think a lot of people can just copy that blueprint. Yeah. And I think honestly, you can do that.
And I'm comfortable doing that with crowd work. Yeah, but it has to be in the moment, in the fly.
I think that's your play, man.
Crowd work, yeah.
Because I know enough that you're respected on stage. Again, I haven't like seen a live show.
Right.
But I know enough that you're respected on stage. Mm-hmm. So I can only imagine if you put those clips in front of your people, it promotes the stand-up itself.
It does.
Because right now I'm looking at the voiceovers and I might think about it's curiosity, but if I see, he does this, I need to go to the show.
Yeah, you're right. Because I post stand-up clips every so often.
I'm talking about do the whole thing, the subtitles. Yeah. You know, package it up, hit it with a joke, and I think that would go personally.
Yeah. That's probably the move, because I've definitely been thinking about it, because I've seen Andrew's rise and I'm just like, yo, that's amazing. And it's like, but I'm always like, because I tell Laugh Factory this Chocolate Sunday, she'd be like, can we post a clip? I'm like, man, I got too many clips out there. I feel like I have too much stand-up material already available online.
But I think, and this is, again, the business person in me, you have 2.5 million Instagram, that's your own nation.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to catch more people to sell out venues. And you know your analytics. You know these people exist in every city to sell out what's the goal? 2,000 seater?
Yeah, my goal is, so I did my first theater last month or the month before that in Boston. So that was the first theater I've done as a headliner. And that venue held like 1,100 venue. And so I filled it to like 77% capacity for a one-nighter. I was like, man, I wanted that 100%. But my crew was like, yo, man,
this is great.
You just set a personal record for yourself for a one-night show.
Right.
And I was just like, yeah, you're right. But I was still just like, so I wanted the full venue. But they were right. They were just like, this is the start. This is your first theater.
Right.
You set a personal sales record for one show.
Right.
And I was just like, yeah. But the thing is, and one thing that scares me that I don't like, that I don't feel as independent about, is that I have to cater to Instagram.
Okay. The algorithm?
No, Instagram at any moment can delete my page.
Got you.
And I hate them having that much power over my platform. Because if I lose that platform, I can only promote through YouTube, who can also take my stuff down. Then I got to go through these other pages that I have. Right. And so it's scary in that regard. And I feel like when I say I want to get to Chappelle level, he doesn't need Instagram.
Right. And that's where I thought you were going there.
So it's just like, even though I had the $2.5 million followers.
Yeah.
Instagram can be like, you know what, you got too many violations because of your voiceovers. We just gonna take the page.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
and that's where I think you have to kind of maybe have that, introspective of how do you play it? Do you just hit us over the head with those crowd work videos to where the legend of Tony Baker becomes a social currency now exists? Because Chappelle has social currency. Right. He doesn't need Instagram or Twitter, but when he does something, it's gonna go to my friends. Yeah. It's gonna go to my network. And I think that I wonder you have to hit us over the head so much to build a social currency of Tony Baker in a stand-up form.
Right.
Then you're able to do Chappelle move.
Yeah. Cause you're right though, cause it's like, cause some people still, I didn't know you did stand-up, you know? So I still get that.
I think that's, I'm a visionary. I think that's a new season. Yeah. Going into the new year, hit us over the head with that stand-up.
Right. Yeah. I like it. And usually when I do post a stand-up clip, they usually do, pretty well. And I can just slap a flyer at the end of that.
Yeah.
Be like, I'll be in
and I
Tampa.
think you're great enough to know, I know you could probably riff on things. Yeah. Because you have a point of view. So you can probably easily it writes itself. Like this interview, I'm being very transparent. You were able to talk about different things. Right. That can be done in a humoristic way now, stand up. And
for sure.
You just giving out freebies. Yeah. I think that's the game now, watching like that LaRussell guy I mentioned. Yeah. That's the game of like hitting the market, bop, 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 and you just break through. But you're doing an amazing job.
But hey, man, but I could be doing better. And that's exactly, I think that's a great tool because, when I host Tony Baker and Friends at Flappers every month, it's pretty much all riff. Like I pretty much just go up there with like, this is what happened to me this month. And then I just riff, I do crowd work. Yeah. And so I feel like I can turn those clips into.
And then it leads into the demand. Yeah. Now Hollywood is like, okay, this guy's selling out these spaces. Right. It'd be stupid if we're not gonna start, doing business with him. That's what happened with Andrew. Because he was denied a lot. They weren't checking for him. He was the hip hop white boy and there's no real place for that. Yeah. And then he carved his lane. And so I think, boom. So yeah.
I like it.
But nonetheless, Mr. Tony Baker, thank you.
Thanks for having me, man.
For this conversation. And this is your first one-on-one with Hype Plus.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, y'all.